Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm sure that you'll let me know if you can't. Thank you for coming on today. So we're really pleased that we're able to bring this session to you today on Google changes, specifically SEO and affiliate marketing. Got a really good panel of people who I'm going to hand over to that know a lot more about the subject than I do. So I just basically top and tail in this session today. Just a little bit of housekeeping for you. If you want to ask a question, please either put your hand up or type it into the chat. If you prefer, because we're recording this session so that we can share it with everybody afterwards, if you prefer to ask a question anonymously, then you can use the link I sent over previously where you can submit it through the Google chat. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over now to Ed, who's going to take you through a little bit of content and then open it up to the wider group, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So thanks very much.
Great, thanks Kev. So as Kev mentioned, you've got three of us on here today. So myself, the founder of Comb, alongside me James.
Hi guys.
And alongside me Maya.
Hello.
And our goal today really is to give you a bit of a very brief history lesson in terms of what Google changes have recently occurred. And we will then follow that up with a kind of look on who's benefited from recent changes, who has lost out from recent changes, are the changes actually following Google's guidelines and what they've pushed out. We'll have some personal insights from Maya and the Sole Supplier team and the Sole Supplier site, and then we'll have some general commentary from James that's just going to kind of take us through, you know, what we might be able to do from where we are now, some potential improvements for all the affiliates out there, as well as some kind of general better understanding for the retailers in the group. So we'll then obviously make the vast majority of this time available for Q&A. Really, I just want to set the scene, and then I want as much dialogue as possible between you and our two experts here. So let's crack on. In terms of recent changes, probably there are three important ones that have really affected the affiliate industry. The first is product review changes, which fundamentally have been focused on weeding out thin contents, listicles, etc., that don't really offer the end user a whole lot of value. And that happened around February to April of last year. We then had the next iteration of EAT, which was EEAT, the extra E standing for experience. And the idea is that we are taking the previous ideas on expertise, authority, and transparency and adding in this layer of experience so that people can show, you know, you should only really be seeing reviews where somebody has used the product and you're getting personalized experiences and commentary. And then we have the domain abuse update, which we'll cover a little bit later, which kind of has been very much in the news recently as having hurt a variety of sites and caused mass media publishers to stop their couponing, has caused a lot of very good content sites to lose out on best XYZ related terms. And then we'll also future gaze a little bit. We'll talk about AI overviews and what used to be known as SGE. And so let's continue with that. So as I mentioned, initially we started with product review changes at the start of last year. And what we generally saw from a commentary point of view was that there's a lot of evidence to say that Google is really encouraging sites to give product reviews that have real commentary on the products, where possible, providing insights that aren't commonly available on retailers' own websites, providing insights and information and usage shots and all those kinds of things that are really going to help a consumer make a purchasing decision. And in fact, we have a quote here from somebody from Search Engine Journal, which is a popular SEO blog, that just gives their kind of running commentary and is a nice summary of what this kind of change really was all about. Secondly, we had the EEAT, or otherwise known as kind of helpful content update. I've kind of rolled these two changes into one because their sentiments and what they achieved were very similar. We have here from the Google developer resources really what they were encouraging people to ask themselves as creators. So is there original information? Do you have a helpful summary? Is it an easy to use site? Is it written by an expert? And I think we'll have a very good debate later about what expertise really means, whether that's domain authority, i.e. your domain is one that is very well thought of by Google and by various ranking signals, or is it the expertise of the author? Do they have an online presence? Are they someone that can be verifiably trusted? And what follows quite naturally from that is this content just generally trustworthy? Can you find citations of things that they say? Can you verify the data sources?
I think just to add to that as well, it's obviously something that's really important. It was first in its iteration around 2018, and it was utilized as a mechanism to define high quality and page quality of content. So using the expertise, authoritativeness, and trustfulness of the quality rater guidelines, which is used as the arm of the human raters to kind of feed into the machine learning for Google to understand a bit more. You know, obviously around EAT and Your Money, Your Life, which is obviously YMYL. Those are, you know, key algorithms that Google have been working on over the last couple of years, iterated them more and more with the constant evolution of AI and trying to make it more written by humans for humans, but adding that extra E in, as like you correctly said, around the experience-led approach, which is something that they are really trying to stand themselves out in the sector, which is very much using a lot of machine learning, corpus data, and yeah, just basically as much data as they can to train these large language models.
Yep. Very much so, thank you. And then more recently, we had the domain abuse update. So Google introduced 2 new sections to its policies, one around expired domain abuse, which is when a domain has expired and has existing authority. Let's say somebody that's very quick on the draw would go and buy that website, repurpose it, and seek to use its existing reputation for usually completely different purposes. We saw a lot of that in very competitive niches like casinos, gambling, insurance, etc. And then the one that was the hot news, certainly in the affiliate industry, was this idea of using a third-party provider of some sort of service. The one that we all know, of course, is couponing, and where that service was considerably separated from the domain's original purpose. So somebody like, let's say Marie Claire, fundamentally a stylistic one, or Style magazine, or somebody like The Sun, fundamentally a newspaper, then using a third-party service to manage their voucher content for them without a lot of close oversight or perhaps involvement. Of course, the runners of these services would argue the opposite. I'm just simply sharing what Google's policies are. And exactly that example was given when they released this documentation.
I think just to add to that as well, that's a great point around this reputation abuse kind of structuring. Over the years, Google has been kind of taking a blind eye to the parasite sites, which is what this is kind of utilizing a high authority site and then putting on a broad set of topics that are outside of the domain knowledge of that particular publication or site.
Yeah.
And, you know, having that high level of authority means that obviously, you know, we work with a lot of sites. We see sometimes that these high authority sites, they rank for things that are kind of outside what they kind of, you know, what is the main purpose, like you said.
Sure.
So the parasite whole thing, site reputation abuse, has been something that has really kind of started to change the search landscape.
Big time. Thank you. And then we will look ahead to changes that we know are coming. It's already kind of being rolled out in dribs and drabs across America, and actually there have been some tests already. We'll talk a little bit about those later. But fundamentally, AI overviews, which I've managed to say clearly this time. So Google will introduce AI-powered search results, the ability to ask new kinds of questions that are more complex, try to get the gist of topics faster. It will also encourage kind of starting tasks as you search. So drafting up emails, drafting up content writing, drafting up image generation, right from the point that you're searching. And also allow you to make progress easy by asking conversational follow-up questions. So it's an engaging form of search, and you can see some of the ranking factors at the bottom there. So we will cover what we think that will do to affiliate marketing more generally, and how we think that will shape search over the coming years.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the ranking factors. It's a new development by Google, and at the moment, a lot of people are still in the dark about what actually can take to kind of rank in AI overviews. Obviously, we'll share some data after about explaining about it triggers for a number of searches now, and based on that, on the triggering of those searches, it's going to be a search landscape like the blue links, like the featured snippets, that people are going to want to try to get into to get higher levels of traffic, because as you rightly will discuss later on, it takes up quite a lot of real estate.
Very much so. And actually, I've got a quick example here just to bring that to life. So as we can see, an example search of an AI overview in which you can't see any of the existing top positions, but what you can see is almost like a conversation that Google is encouraging you to have with this experience, saying, here's some initial information. Would you like some follow-up questions? Would you like to go off and read more about article 1, 2, 3, etc.?
I actually think that, just going back to that slide, that this experience is also going to affect not only affiliates even further, but e-commerce sites. So it's going to be a very fine balancing act for Google, because Google relies, I think 78% of the entire Alphabet revenue is generated by Google Ads, and how they balance this will be crucial for e-commerce businesses.
Definitely, yeah.
No doubt.
And again, the development of the e-commerce side of SGE AI is still kind of in its infancy. But we've all seen the examples of typing in a specific query term and then typing in, can I see this in red, or can I see this at this price level, can I see this at this? Google wants to try to retain the people within its own engine, and it's doing some stuff in the US market and Australia, where it's trying to build a facet filter within shopping to be able to then make sure that you transact in the kind of engine rather than going off to the third-party sites.
Yeah, very much so. So what I wanted to do, that's your kind of simple history lesson, if you will. And of course, I don't want to speak too much in this, because I'm certainly not an expert on this topic, but my esteemed panel is. I wanted to give a few examples of timelines of website traffic for some well-known sites that I think will help frame our discussion a little bit. I thought perhaps the best one to start with would be HouseFresh, and HouseFresh have had a significant amount of PR and coverage for ultimately their sentiment, which is that Google has fundamentally killed their business. And in their eyes, they followed all of the guidelines almost to the letter. So if you were to look on the HouseFresh site, you would see that all of the listicles that they have, all of the reviews that they've done are verifiably tested. They are undoubtedly experts in the various topics that they cover. And yet here we can see how initially in the product review update, they saw a significant uptick. Then the EAT and the helpful content update rollout saw a slight decline. And then with the domain abuse, what we saw was a really significant drop off, almost as if Google is saying, actually, all this review content that you've curated is not really in line with what we believe your domain is about, which is a very strange position to take when they're following all of the other information that Google has put out there. I wonder, James, if you want to provide maybe a little bit of commentary or kind of what you think has happened here. And obviously we'll go to Maya, because we'll also look at something similar for Sole Supply shortly.
Definitely. I think the main thing that's happened here is that HouseFresh, although it's a great publisher and it's utilizing all the right criteria for high quality sites, and as Ed said, around expert reviewers, it's still not a brand. And that's the thing. I think in this new kind of rollout, and I think we'll obviously touch on obviously Maya with yourself as well, and obviously when Ed shows the rest of the document slides, we generally will see a shift around quite predominantly best listicle topic terms around reviews being started to put towards the retailers and the e-commerce sites, because in Google's eyes, they are a brand. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to give all that kind of equity, even if it's something like, okay, HouseFresh is a great example, because it's by its purpose, it is a reviewer of air purifiers and so forth. But I think where HouseFresh has struggled is that it's, again, without being, too much, I think it uses obviously affiliate links with its copy, and I think Google is obviously aware about these use of affiliate links. Retailers don't tend to use affiliate links; they tend to use their own catalog product links. But I do think that we are seeing a change in Google's understanding of informational content at a retail level being more the home of the retailers, even though they might not be as experienced, even though I know the HouseFresh team have obviously got, a lot of expert reviewers, and, they've got all the factors of YML, EAT, coordinators guidelines. They've got, long form content. They've got diversified content. They've got everything, and they've got the topic relevancy and clustering around that topic. But I still think the HouseFresh have struggled because they're not a brand, as in a retail brand, and they're trying to advise customers around a product which is predominantly a retail product. So that's my kind of opinion on that, I suppose.
Yeah, appreciate that. We have another example here, somewhat similar, which is Call of the Wild. It's a kind of adventure site. And again, we can see a slightly similar shape here in the sense that we had the product review update in which the various products that they had reviewed did fairly well. Now, Call of the Wild are actually very transparent about their review policy. They, in fact, say, look, we don't test every single thing on our site, but we do test the vast majority, and we make it clear which ones we have tested and which ones we haven't. And again, you can see, look, through updates 2 and 3, EAT updates and the helpful content updates, again, like it started to be a slight shift downwards, almost in reaction to the fact that perhaps not all of their content is experience-led. But you can really see actually the domain abuse and perhaps the helpful content update in this occasion have started to really tail off on these sites. And it's a similar shape for a lot of sites out there that have a mix of genuinely reviewed content and, if you like, curated content based on the reviews that they can find across the internet more generally.
I think just to add to that, I'm not overly aware of this domain per se, but you can generally see by the chart there, they're in a negative ranking decline or traffic decline from, the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So what they're doing is they're obviously, if I look at this, and obviously I look at a lot of brands, we do a lot of auditing on data sets and charts, and I generally see that if this pattern occurs, it looks like they're being hit a couple of times by algorithm updates. So it's obviously Google have been, I can't see what the main date on that was, but, that was probably some kind of, core update, around a couple of years ago, and they were probably ranking a lot higher. They massively declined. They kind of dipped and kind of stayed around a flat line, and then slightly grew, and then obviously after the release of the helpful content and the domain abuse, the site authority abuse, then they have declined again. And I would be interested to see, why that happened, I suppose, mm-hmm. because it looks like a negative state from 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a valid point. Actually, what we see in those little green blobs underneath, that's not some weird formatting, I assure you. Actually, within Ahrefs, it shows you when a site has made an attempt to really overhaul its content. And the bigger, the darker, the greener the circle, the bigger effort has been made by that site to change things. So it aligns very closely with what you're saying, which is early doors, you can see they were declining. So they just overhauled everything, thought they were recovering, only to be hit later on.
Yeah. And we do see that a lot, Ed, obviously, being around since the Panda and Penguin days, a lot of clients who were hit during those times, they were following best practice. They were doing everything right. And then Google just, took the rug away from them and didn't say that they could any kind of work that you did, there was a lot of activity that happened. It still took 2 years for Google then to reconsider, and a lot of those businesses just went out of business.
For sure.
And that's, again, it's a kind of a zero-sum game, unfortunately, with some of these algorithm updates.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the sole supplier then. Maya, you're obviously here with us, and we've seen a slightly different shape for the sole supplier. I wonder if you want to kind of talk us through how you see the changes that have occurred recently, and then also it'd be really good to hear your commentary on how well you feel your experience of the Google changes matches up with the documentation, and how well those things are really matching. Well, how well they match. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So first of all, to give a bit of an overview, the sole supplier is the second biggest content affiliate in the UK and the biggest sneaker platform in Europe. So we are a comprehensive resource for latest news, release dates, product reviews, where to buy, and price comparison information. So as you can see, kind of on the graph, we haven't been hit by the product review update. In fact, we've kind of spiked over there. However, where this graph is ever so slightly misleading, it looks like we've been hit by kind of the helpful content and EAT the most. But the reality is that if you zoom in closer, where we got hit the most was actually in the October update. I remember just waking up on the 9th of October, overnight losing 40% of our traffic, which was extremely painful, obviously for us as a business in terms of a revenue loss, but also, I have to say, unfortunately, losing quite a few good colleagues in the process as well.
Yeah.
And something that I would like to touch on that you mentioned, James, like I never in a million years would not want us to rank better than Nike. I don't expect that.
Of course not.
Or Adidas or any of the kind of retailers that we work with. However, I do disagree with some of the helpful content that is now appearing above us. In fact, I quite share the House Fresh view, and we were actually also writing an article ourselves about this, because we followed everything to a T, and we just disagree with some of the rankings at the moment. And the other thing that we mentioned a couple of times, so yes, it's all about the brand and the brand authority, but also what is a good brand. So the sole supplier's brand authority is 62 out of 100. That's technically considered on the good side. However, we've still lost 40%. And don't get me wrong, I've seen quite a few other colleagues in the affiliate industry that didn't have such a brand authority that were hit even by 80% declines. And that's painful, because the majority of the affiliates are smaller websites.
Yeah, and content creators and, like I said, publishers around. And I think what you're saying there is correct. I think it doesn't matter so much. The content you created is great content. You've got a great domain authority. You've got a purpose of a business. It's just that when you look at it from like a brand volume, or like, let's say how many searches are there per month, we work with, a leading kind of footwear brand, and they've got a massive equity around their brand name, and they don't really do much informational content. They kind of just focus more, and the way that we've advised them is to build their site out at a attribute and a category level, rather than going down that kind of trend lists and guides and styles. But, they are ranking for those terms because they're a brand, and the content is not that detailed. It's a kind of your classic journal, which is, very image heavy and not a lot of content. And, obviously, it is promoting their own stuff. So if you are going to create a comparison piece, these retailers are not probably the best fit for it. But I think Google is just going round, and it's just marking names. And
to that point, we actually have a question here, which is very similar, which is, if you don't have a retail brand, is Google ultimately saying here that you don't have anything useful from a consumer standpoint that is going to talk about the best, let's say, air purifiers or the best sneakers for collectors in 2024, or whatever the right phrasing or search term might be. You know, who should really be taking up that real estate? Because what we're seeing at the moment is where some of these sites have fallen away in the rankings. We have seen retailers take some of those spots, and yet the content that's ranking is undoubtedly with a vested interest. But then at the same time, perhaps the affiliate site is too, because there's passive earnings to be had, etc. So what should that space look like from both of your perspectives?
Well, from my perspective, I mean, obviously, if it's supposed to be helpful content, then that's exactly what it should be. So, so if they're weeding out thin content and it has to be helpful content, I expect that to be shown for that particular term. If the term is more obviously transactional, then I expect obviously the brands to be ranking, and I think that would be the fairest way. But currently, I'm just also seeing Reddit ranking a lot with very, very old content, just because possibly Reddit have an agreement with Google at the moment.
A partnership.
Exactly. So I do think at the moment, I have to say, again, possibly because we're a bit bitter. No,
rightfully so. Let's be honest, rightfully so.
Well, you invest in your brand.
Yeah, I am quite cynical. Yes, Google has been our growth channel always. That's how the sole supplier has grown. Writing reviews. So yeah, we do feel quite cynical at the moment and bitter, because we don't think that we do fit in Google's revenue model. That's the
very valid.
I think that's a really valid point. I think when you look into the comparison pieces around, you know, we do a lot of work, obviously, in the agency around different verticals. Yes, e-commerce. We also work in SaaS brands as well, and B2B sectors. And when it comes to those kind of best, like those best listicles, when it comes to those comparison pieces, you know, you shouldn't have the brands ranking for them. That's the first thing, because the brands are going to be overly biased around their own products. You should have experts, like, you know, obviously within certain spaces, like, you know, the SaaS space and fintech, you've got things like Capterra, G2 Crowd, and those kind of take it upon themselves to rank for a lot of those terms, because they are seen as an independent third party who does review. I think the problem we've got here is that from a bottom of the funnel term around best, it's people who are looking in the market demand for that specific product. And I do feel that it's over the years, it's had a lot more demand and a lot more volume, because people are doing that more conversational, think for me, bottom of the funnel kind of searching. What happens then is you've got SEOs and you've got in-house content marketers who want to go after those terms. And you end up in a situation where we've got at the moment, where you've got some sites like yourselves, Maya, which is, you know, producing some great content that is third party and it's got multiple brands. And then you've got other sites that are just trying to rank and drive traffic. And, you know, the whole kind of what we try to focus on from an e-commerce perspective, and I work with the brands, I'm like, there's no point in investing all that money in that top of the funnel traffic, or even that bottom of the funnel traffic, because it doesn't convert. So we want to go after the terms that convert at an e-commerce transactional level, whereas for you, it might convert better because you are given that if someone's in the market, obviously, you know, I've been in SEO for a long time. Back in the day, you used to get people who'd create these like blogs on, you know, best dumbbells or best weightlifting equipment. And those were just really spun articles that were put up
purely money making.
Yeah,
right?
just put up by people who had, you know, Amazon kind of affiliate kind of links everywhere. I think you're right. Like
none of us want to see that, and we all want independent, verified expertise. And so for the sites that are doing that are then being hit, this must just be a very difficult time. If we want to jump on to the next couple of slides, so Good Housekeeping, another good example, one that's been kind of hit by domain abuse, and follow on one more. There are also, though, some examples where that hasn't been the case, where actually somebody has been hit and then the domain abuse update has come along and they've gained even more traffic. So whilst there are winners and losers out there, what seems to be the case is even the wins are not significant. In this particular example, we're looking at a small part of the Marie Claire site, specifically their beauty reviewing and their beauty style guides, products, etc. But we saw them recover during the domain abuse update, primarily, I assume, because they have a really good domain authority, which leads me on to one of the questions here, which is domain authority a much more important factor in how a site is ranked compared to how it used to be? Maya, if you want to give some thoughts there.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not 100% sure.
Right, exactly.
Because obviously we'll never have as good of a domain authority as the brands. And again, I don't want us to rank better than Nike and Adidas and so forth. But at the moment, I'm seeing very mixed results in the domains that are actually appearing in the search.
Completely agree.
So, so I don't know. I've thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, but what else can we do? We already at 62. Yeah, there's more that we should be doing, of course. But now that we've lost all of this traffic, where is the resource for doing more? So I feel like the kind of affiliate's a bit squeezed. So it kind of feels like, yes, the kind of bigger affiliates with more domain authority are going to remain, and more resources are going to possibly be remaining. But what happens with kind of the long tail? And that's the scary part for me, because I'm not here advocating for the sole supplier, because we're already the second biggest. I'm here advocating for the smaller affiliates, because they are your real brand ambassadors. They are the real people that are going to review your products.
Yeah, agreed.
You know, if you're a brand.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I completely agree.
I think just on that point as well, Ed, is domain authority, as we know, is a metric that is defined by Moz based on their indexing. It's not something that Google say they use. Google have got something they use called PageRank. They don't say they use it, but they use it. It's in the background. We all know that Google lies.
You mean to say, yeah, they're not always telling the truth?
We all know Google lies, and it's been lying for the last 10 years. But just go to the point of domain authority. I think it's more Google is using. It's got its kind of seed sites, and it's looking at how many people are actively looking for these specific sites and products, or brands, I should say, per month. And if someone's looking for, Nike trainers, for example, and that's got, 250,000 people searching for it, every month, then that's going to have a high authority, even if, like, for example, we work with some brands that haven't got a massive authority. We compete with, in the gifting sector, with brands like Fortnum & Mason. We've got a massive domain authority and equity, and we work with, with brands that have, in the footwear, which they've got like 60, you know what I mean? So it's, but the big brands, the high street names. And I think Google is just, kind of going, these sites, people are actively looking for them more. There's more signals coming in. Therefore, they've got more brand equity. Therefore, we're going to trust them more. I don't particularly think it's the best way, but Google, the thing with what Google tends to do is Google will roll something out, and then it will iterate it. Roll something out, we went too hard on that, went too hard on that, and then roll it back a little bit. What they also do is they, if it affects 1% of their corpus or their engine, they don't really worry about it. That 1% could be millions of businesses that they don't really, care about. And I think you probably mentioned in a second, Ed, going on to the piece where, somebody from Retro Dodo was invited to the Google Search Liaison by Danny Sullivan, and Danny Sullivan was like, why did it happen? Sorry it happened. We're trying to do everything we can to kind of, help you content creators. Because Retro Dodo was very similar.
Because this was a site that had a lot of traffic, almost overnight lost it all.
Massive.
And they were invited into Google to say what happened.
Exactly. And good. And Danny turned around to him and said, look, it wasn't right what happened to you. Keep on doing what you're doing. The classic Google rhetoric. Just create high quality content. Just keep on, doing what you're doing. Just go into work. But Danny doesn't know what the engineers do. They just do stuff, and he doesn't know what they do, and they don't really care about businesses. They don't care about livelihoods. They are algorithm tweakers, and that's what they will do. Sorry, mate.
No, no, I'm 100% agree with you. So yeah.
Yeah. We have one more example here, which is perhaps the biggest gainer out of all of the sites that we kind of looked at here, which is Tech Radar, a future publication. And perhaps there is something to say about your position in the market if you are part of a media house, or if you are a if you like, subsidiary of a news corporation. You know, are you going to be treated any differently? And that was one of the things I wanted to put to the test a little bit. So I did a bit of research in aid of looking at this. And, you know, the first thing we saw, well, the research is about to come on the next slide, but in this one at least, we just wanted to nod and say, look, we obviously have seen that the domain abuse update killed off a lot of voucher code sites, particularly those that were kind of operated by third-party solutions, almost in an unmanaged way. And so you can see there's a lot of sites here that have been really heavily affected. So when we're talking about the domain abuse update, we can't really cover it without nodding to that and saying, like, we've seen this before, but also this has had a lot of coverage, and I imagine most people on this call would kind of say that we've heard about that, we've read a lot of the news about that. So show us something maybe that we haven't seen so far. So we did a little bit of a view on how the search appearances or how the various search terms are changing for best of or best product type or those kinds of searches. And clearly there's a big shift away from affiliates and much more heavily towards retailer space, and in particular UGC space. You kind of mentioned it earlier, Maya, this idea that we're starting to see Reddit articles more prominently. Do you think that they're more than anyone else the main beneficiary of these most recent updates?
For the time being, from obviously I've only looked at a very limited niche space, so I'm sure you can provide a much more in-depth analysis there, but absolutely. But that is also in a way encouraging, in the sense of, if this is what Google favors, maybe that's what the affiliates should focus on, and try working with brands to make sure that they can create this kind of like more in-depth reviews and kind of user-generated content and so forth, and feature them on their websites, have more dwell time, and so forth.
Do we think that's a good piece of advice? Should every affiliate out there suddenly be creating a forum and a place for people to discuss those products, right? Like, is Reddit got that market cornered already? Should we be opening that door? What do you think?
Yeah, I think around, I think it was October last year, obviously there was a massive rollout around perspectives, and that perspectives changed to forums, and a lot of forums started entering the index. Not so much in the UK market at the time, but the American market used to have a little bit of real estate just below it that said discussion point. And all forums and discussions were in that. And some of them are very old, like you said there. And you know, it kind of reminded me of, you know, back in the day of, you know, all these forums coming up and all the bad advice and people losing their houses and losing their health. And I think that the key thing with this is, you know, Reddit has seen a massive increase in traffic and visibility, massive. And yes, we know there's the partnership that was discussed with them back in February, but they're also doing another partnership with OpenAI, and all that data is being trained into the models. And I do think that the search, I do think what Google's trying to do with this, Google is struggling to define what does experience content look like. And they are saying that the forums and the boards and discussions, those are real people asking real questions. That's what they say. They're not commercial people. They're not going to sell something. Well, back in the day, a lot of forums did try to like crowbar and sell something. But the quality is the thing that I'm not happy with. And a lot of this data now, you know, when AI overviews was rolled out, a lot of the citations were things like Reddit articles, were things like Quora, and a lot of those topics, they're not validated, they're not fact checked, they're not anything. And those things, the things that were coming up were things around health, were things around finance and welfare. So I think what Google did is kind of rolled it back a little bit but it still hasn't, as you can see there by by Lily and her team. You know, I'm aware of this piece of work that was done by her company. You know, the biggest thing for me was just the rise of the brands, the rise of the retailers. Even I can't see now because obviously it's a bit far away from me, but even like seed sites that Google absolutely loves and adores, like New York Times and those kind of things, they started to take those little things away from them. Forbes, I think there was a piece of research done before, Forbes had more content around pet insurance than it had than a veterinary brand, and they were ranking for a lot of, you know, how to look after your pet, you know, symptoms and prevention, and you know, why is Forbes ranking for that?
It's a very, very good point.
You know,
for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think this touches on a topic that's kind of even outside of SEO, but back in the day, there used to be something called referral marketing and referral channels, and that's what Forbes was previously, until they were like, well, let's just monetize the content because we need to, because they were forced to. So kind of like Google, it's kind of like they were forced into doing that.
Because
not because they really wanted to, but they were losing
because they're losing money everywhere else. Yeah, exactly. You're right.
So on the point of, I suppose, forums and real questions and real people, we obviously could talk about all of these topics for many more minutes, but you know, we do want to encourage the audience to submit any questions that you may have. We are a completely open book. There's probably one more slide we maybe want to look at, but you know, if questions do come in, then we'll certainly address those. We wanted to have a little look at how various sites have been affected. So this is a real simple snapshot in time, which is this time last year versus this time last week. Looking at how the various sites have changed not how the sites have changed, but actually how their traffic has changed. And it seems to demonstrate that it really doesn't matter if you're an independent site, like, for example, we have some here like The Broke Backpacker, like Emily Luxton, Backpackies, House Fresh, etc., or whether you're a kind of media publication, perhaps Sustainable Jungle, Who, What, Where, What Hi-Fi. Even if you are, in fact, a news outlet. So The Sun used to have a very product review heavy component to their site. The Independent's review arm, which is like the site /extras, the Telegraph, and even these independent reviewers, the ones where actually they're maybe almost defined by the fact that they independently review sites. So Which.co.uk, Artings, Trusted Reviews, universally across the board, these sites are losing significant chunks of their traffic. And Maya, you rightly said, you know, some sites have lost almost everything, and we have some examples here. 40% almost in this context doesn't seem so bad, but we do have the 500% increase in Reddit and 250% in Quora. So is it the case that really this is just because Google's getting paid money by Reddit through this partnership and they just want to surface as much content? Do they really believe that this is real people, real questions, and therefore the answers are trusted? Or is fundamentally Google just getting all of this wrong? And you know, maybe this is why AI overviews is going to be so significant for them, because they almost want people to search in a completely different way now.
I think from my perspective, not to be completely cynical, I think maybe the answer is somewhere in the middle, because obviously they would want the best possible experience for the users when they, especially with new kind of competitors coming on the scene, such as Perplexity AI and all of the AI search engines. They would want the best possible answer out there. However, I also do think that they have a monetary interest to be promoting certain other websites. So I do think that the answer is somewhere in the middle. But again, I do think that they have to be really careful, and also brands as well with SG.
To basically not kill off the creators of this content in the first place. And we have a question to that end from Philip here, which is, given how important Google is to an affiliate's traffic, if Google keeps increasing the shelf space for AI overviews, for less, if you like, affiliate-based traffic, and hence increases Google's revenues and decreases affiliates' revenues, you know, are they going to be less able to create content that's going to power these systems in the first place? Like, how do we think that future is going to look?
I mean, for me, the answer is yes and no, because we do see that, again, reputable affiliates are staying there. So I don't think that affiliates are completely going to die, but they are going to kill off possibly the ones that are even more trustworthy and smaller.
Yeah.
At the same time, also, something that's quite interesting is not to forget that Google has been actually already fined by I think the European Commission for doing something very similar in the comparison side space.
Yeah.
So I think if actually big affiliates do gather together and maybe
there could be a similar ruling.
There might be a similar ruling because it was Kelco and another huge comparison site that went after Google, and they got fined and they had to change how they do things. So I do think that there is an opportunity for the bigger affiliates and maybe like an affiliate association to come together and do something about it.
That's it. The revolution is starting here. So we had one more question here, and this one's definitely in your wheelhouse, James. So there's going to be an algo update in the next few weeks, supposedly. What do you think Google is going to do? Is it going to back down and maybe wind back some of these changes and perhaps restore the traffic? And let's be honest, it has done that in the past when it's recognized it's made some significant mistakes. Bit of a difficult question, but do we think Google users are liking these new results? Personally, I think they're pretty atrocious. I have to type Reddit at the end of anything when it's actually fact-based. I really don't get any sort of best inspiration from retailer sites. So let's start with you, James, on the upcoming algo, and then we'll go to you, Maya, for what do users think of these changes?
I think they may kind of roll some parts back a bit. I think there's been quite a lot of backlash. And Google don't like to, when AI overviews first rolled out, it was atrocious. And I think one of the Google Webmaster support things was just put off because everybody said, how do I turn off AI overviews? How do I turn off AI overviews? So I do think AI overviews hasn't come to the UK market yet. It's obviously still in the test phase. It is going to come in some iteration. I do potentially think that they will try to tweak it a little bit back, but I also do think that Google are pretty dogged in their approach on these things. I do still think they're going to put experience-led content. I think AI overviews, which is still getting some really bad press,
rightfully so far, because some of the results are wild.
Because it's the way that it's been built. It's been built on an old data set that they're trying to put into the live results. Some of the stuff that comes into the AI overviews of citations is from content that is going as a 404 because the page is broken.
Yeah.
So that's not.
It's almost like they're using an entirely separate system to power the AI overviews.
100%.
Right?
They use a different system.
And somebody has asked, has Google rolled this out into Europe yet? And if not, why not? That almost speaks to this fear of the ECU ruling.
They're really worried about the EU.
Yeah.
They're really worried about the EU on this because of the privacy laws of everything, and that's why they didn't roll it out in the UK market or Europe market, because they're really worried because it's rolled out in the US. And Elizabeth Reed, who's one of the main product designers, chief product designers of Google, they were like, we made mistakes and we're fixing them. But they also said that everybody loves it, everybody uses this, it's all great, but it's never backed up with data.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly
a sentiment.
Yeah, for sure. What's your experience about if, as a consumer, let's say, put yourself into those shoes?
As a consumer, personally, since November last year, I've completely shifted to using only Perplexity AI, and we're seeing 40% growth month on month of users moving to Perplexity AI.
Wow.
And I actually think that this is why Google are moving more and more towards SG and making all of these changes, because if you actually look at the investor list of Perplexity AI, I do think that for the first time ever, Google actually has a real competitor. Even though I'm not saying that Perplexity is perfect, it also hallucinates and it's based on. There's also lots of obviously lawsuits coming their way. The way with we see with OpenAI of using data. However, if you ask me, the experience there is, I would say, maybe 1,000 times better than Google at the moment. I don't have to open 10 different tabs, close ads, approve cookies, and so forth. I just get the information straight away.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I think
great
so.
insight.
And I'm not paid by them.
I think search is going to evolve into a space of content discovery from other channels, from, it's probably going to be people going back to YouTube. Obviously, we know the rise of TikTok on content discovery. We know the rise of conversational search. I do think that AI overviews is using an evolution of featured snippets as its main algorithm, and I do think that AI overviews is generally going to give us bad results for quite a long time before they get the good results. Because the thing is with AI, as everybody will may know on this call, is it's really expensive to run, and Google don't like to spend money running things so they've put hardly any kind of money into running this. And I think I saw something earlier on.
And it shows, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
fundamentally,
And again, I think so earlier on. I think Alphabet's, I think the greenhouse gases grown like 48% since they've kind of developed these kind of AI overviews. Because AI, unfortunately, it is it's a high environmental
high
cost.
resource, high
It's
cost.
a very
for
high
sure.
environmental cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're not these like people like Google. The reason that Google built the engine is so it could build it on algorithms. They tried to put deep learning and machine learning into it, but it wasn't something that they wanted to go into full time because it was going to cost so much.
For sure.
And that's the thing, cost at the end of the day.
Yeah. So wary that we have 5 minutes left. So if you do have any kind of remaining questions, then please do obviously fire them in. I suppose the fundamental question is, with this brief history lesson, with the discussions that we've had so far today, what advice should we be giving to affiliates that says, with everything that's going on, here's how you can at least maintain some level of traffic, some level of content, some level of production that's going to keep your lights on and allow you to still make some money? Maya, perhaps that's a question for you.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of a collaboration between the brands and affiliates. So if brands could provide, let's say, high quality or exclusive content. So for example, we get sneak peeks of a brand new shoe model, not from the brands, but from Twitter, because someone has released it.
Yeah.
If we could be getting that from them, and also even like product testing and product seeding, because we spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on buying products that we actually then review in-house.
Yeah.
Just send us the products.
Samples, yeah.
We'll send us
Yeah.
samples. We'll
Yeah.
do all of the product reviews, which are actually going to be that user-generated, unique content on our site to continue growing their brands. Because I think if you look at an affiliate as a channel, I do think that it has a lower cost per acquisition, especially for content
Absolutely.
affiliates.
Yeah.
Then I'm not talking about discount affiliates, that's a different story. But content affiliates have a lower cost per acquisition. So I do think that that's important. Also, maybe tapping to brand awareness budgets, don't own tendencies and don't work on that, but collaborate with affiliates, and again, encourage more maybe conversations on a product level as well with the community that they have as well.
Yeah,
And
it's
again,
a really,
that will have to use generated content.
yeah, it's a really nice point. And I think that the commercials are ultimately the key way in which any retailer out there now could help the affiliates that are going through this. Like we see here that the traffic on all sites universally is reducing. So is it actually the answer that for this state of flux and for this particular time now, if you are an affiliate manager, if you are a brand manager out there that helps on the affiliate program, the thing you ideally want them to be doing is going to other parts of the business and saying, do you have some budget I can use? This is a really key time for content creators out there.
Absolutely. Sorry, just to say we are, besides influencing the bottom part of the funnel, affiliates also influence, especially content affiliates, the top part of the funnel and brand awareness. But obviously, because we're being paid on last click, that's all a deal. Exactly, attribution, that's a whole nother topic, but that's why we're tapping into the affiliate budget. But actually, one of our biggest channels at the moment is social media, of course. So actually, there's a lot of content creation that can be done there.
It's the kind of first interaction, the kind of brand.
Yeah.
I don't really work much in the video space, but I think if I was going to give some like slight advice around it, I probably would say very similar to you, Maya, is build those we won't call them influencers, those brand ambassador programs with the brands. We work with, like I said, quite a lot of e-commerce brands, and we're always looking out for people who can spread the word. I think there's a kind of disconnect in that, whereas it's like we would go out and we'd obviously speak to brand ambassadors, social media influencers, and so forth, and we would do a very similar campaigns with them, but we wouldn't necessarily go to your site, for example, or the site you work for. But I do think what I would probably say from an affiliate perspective, I would say brand build and brand awareness. I would say treat yourself like a brand. Go out there and get commentary, expert commentary. Go out there and build those signals to be seen out everywhere, rather than just be seen in that one kind of place, I suppose.
I agree with you. Unfortunately, that's also possibly the most expensive route.
It's really expensive. Yeah, exactly. And it's but I would think that would probably be the long-term vision I would see for that. And I think from a SEO perspective, Ed, I do think that brands need to continue building relationships and building the brand awareness and getting those signals. That's key. I do think they need to look into other channels, not just organic, look into the other channels. If they were in the SEO space, then, on the paid media, to go elsewhere. But I also do think as well, coverage and topic relevance and diversity of content is going to be key.
Yeah, completely agree. If that means republishing old articles in video formats, if that means perhaps contributing to Reddit threads, trying to seed links there without being overly spammy. I think as well, we didn't really touch on it, but this idea of making sure your tracking is up to date and that it's tracking as well as possible. I think there are multiple things that both retailers can do to help affiliates, and that the affiliates themselves can do to help themselves,
especially with G4 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me pass back to Kev, who is going to tie us off for the last minute.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thanks to the panel today. Really appreciate it. If you aren't familiar with the APMA, then please do go to our website. You go to the Contact Us page, and you can sign up for our newsletter. We will be distributing these slides to everybody that signed up for today's session, and we'll also post a recording on the website as well. But thank you all for attending today, and thanks to the panel. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone. Cool. Nice.